Let's rank every ride at Dollywood. It is my most visited theme park by far, so I feel it only fair that I should be the one who's allowed to rank them. Before we get started, I just want to go ahead and list some names right here of some attractions that I will not be covering. Most of the ones on this list are either kiddie rides, water rides, or just rides I haven't ridden in a very long time and don't feel comfortable giving an opinion on. But without further ado, let's get into the ranking. Just one last thing before I get started though. The way I'll be ranking them is from worst to best in each tier. I'll start at F and I will end at S, similar to my universal ranking video. Starting off in the F tier, we really only have one entry, and it's kind of like kicking a dead horse because the entry I have here isn't even at the park anymore. But it's the Dizzy Disc. The Dizzy Disc is just a flawed concept for an attraction. You get on this big disc that spins around, and that's supposed to be fun, I guess. I have to admit I did like it when I was younger, but upon repeat visits, I honestly couldn't stand the thing. I always get on it purely for nostalgia's sake, and I'd always regret it immediately, as the only thing that the Dizzy Disc does is exactly what it says in the name. It makes you dizzy. It makes you want to go and vomit. So if you want to go and vomit, I would say to ride this ride, but it's not there anymore. And you know what I have to say to that? Good riddance. You suck. Let's move on to the D tier. In my opinion, this is just a step above terrible. It's still not great, not something I would recommend you go and ride, but it's not the worst thing in the world. And let's kick off the D tier with the most D tier thing of them all, the Demolition Derby, or better known as bumper cars. This is kind of a thing with bumper cars in general. I think that the concept is actually just fun inherently, but no one ever does anything interesting with them, and Dollywood is no exception. As we'll get into later on this list, I think that Dollywood actually does a great job with their theming and thrill kind of intertwining together. A lot of parks will oftentimes choose one over the other, but Dollywood has a pretty good balance of that. But the bumper cars is just about as bland as bumper cars get. You're put on a mat with something in the middle to keep you from cutting across, and you drive in an oval, not a circle, an oval. And there's nothing special about it. That's all you do. You slam into people, and if that is just the most fun thing in the world to you, then you're gonna love them. Otherwise, there's no reason for you to get on this. It's just like any other bumper cars in the world. I think someone should take this concept and do something fun with it. I think that there is potential there, but sadly, this is just another one. Next in D, I have the Great Tree Swing, which is just a swinging boat ride. Not much to say, it's just a swinging boat ride. It's fun, I guess, but it's not like super thrilling. It doesn't even go that high. Yeah, I think it is mostly aimed at kids, but at least the boat looks kind of cool. That's the only reason it's above bumper cars for me. To cap off D tier, we have the Scrambler. The Scrambler is just as underwhelming as every ride in D tier. It is just like any other version of this ride that you can find at a fair. You sit in this little tin bench and with other people, and it spins you around really fast. Kind of the whole appeal of this ride is that you get squashed together up against the side of it, and whoever is squashed up against the side of the ride is really uncomfortable. And if that just doesn't sound super thrilling to you, then you probably understand why I don't think this ride is all that special. I do see that there is some merit to it, like the spinning is somewhat thrilling, I guess. It gives me more of a sensation than the boat ride does, so I'm putting it above it. But most of the feeling I have is anger, and I want to get off of it as fast as possible. So that's why it's in D tier. Overall, not a great ride, and it's going to cap off our D tier. There are only 3 rides in here, which isn't a lot, but it does show a weird misstep in Dollywood's quality. Is overall, most of their attractions are pretty good, but these are what I consider to be the worst of the worst. And if these are the worst, I mean, to be honest, they're pretty much just average, so you only can go up from here. Let's start off C tier with something right, and this is the Dragon Flyer. I kind of feel bad having this so close to the other rides because it is way better than anything in D tier, but as far as a tier list goes, ranking all of these in relation to each other, it is kind of a C tier as far as Dollywood is concerned. There isn't really anything wrong with it. It's like a kid's first hanging coaster, and for that task, I think it succeeds fantastically. It offers kids an entry point into the not just hanging coaster, but thrill ride coasters in general. And what it accomplishes is it keeps you close to the ground while you ride in this system. I don't think I've ever ridden one of these before where you're so close to the ground. I think that's supposed to help kids feel more comfortable, like not like they're soaring a million feet above the ground like something like Wild Eagle. And this is more of an entry point, but regardless, it's still pretty fun even as an adult. I have to admit, I do try to get on it every time I'm here, though the wait times normally are pretty high and it's not super worth it. But it is still a good ride, so if you're there and you have younger kids that are kind of wanting to try more thrilling stuff, this is a great one to start them out on. Next in C, we have Fire Chaser Express. Fire Chaser Express is like a kid's first coaster. It's not super thrilling, but it actually has some really neat set pieces. I think the queue is very well designed. It's not like the most engaging queue of all time, but it's nice. The coaster, the layout of it, it's fun. It's not anything crazy, but you know, if you're a kid, you're scared of super crazy coasters, this is going to be a great entry point for you. Not to mention something I won't spoil in case you haven't ridden it, but it does have an interesting mechanic towards the end of the ride that not a ton of coasters do, and they do it pretty well here. All the set pieces are cool too. Overall, it's just a nice ride. The only reason it's above Dragon Flyer is because, in my opinion, it's just done with a bit more care to detail, which I always appreciate. Dragon Flyer is just kind of a coaster over some grass, and this one they actually put some thought into the set pieces that the coaster goes into. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And to me, that makes it just a little bit better. And that's actually going to cap off our C tier. I think everything above here is good or super good. Let's start off B tier rides right with the Barnstormer. The Barnstormer is a ride that is really fun, but I do have a reason that it's in B. The ride is super thrilling. It's like constantly going over the hills and roller coasters. It's just a cheap, fast way to get thrills, and I'm all about that. I said cheap just then. I actually don't mean that entirely because the theming here is actually really good. The queue is kind of like you're waiting in a barn area or something. There's riding on the tops of the roofs as you swing over them. It's all pretty cool, and it's well themed, it's thrilling, so why is it so low? Well, I just think this ride is kind of a one-trick pony. All it does is swing you back and forth. Once you've done it once, you've done it a million times. It's still fun to go back and revisit it, but there's just not much to it. If you want something to kind of give you a pick-me-up to get through the rest of your day, this is a great ride to hit. Not every ride has to be an S tier, and I think this ride serves its purpose perfectly. And last in B, well, I guess I should say top of B, is the drop line. For a very similar reason that Barnstormer is in here, drop line is just kind of a way to get a quick thrill. It's a drop ride. It's not as heavily themed as Barnstormer, which is kind of disappointing, but it's more thrilling. The rise up to the top, even though it's not the tallest drop tower I've ever ridden, heck, when you're going up there, it feels like it. You feel like you are so far up, and you get a great view of the park. The drop, of course, is super cool. It's this tall. I don't know off the top of my head, so I'm just going to put it up here. It's this tall, and it's, I don't know, it's fun. The only thing I think they could do to push this up into A or something would be to give it more of a theme like the ride it replaced. I think it was called Timber Falls or something. It was like a big log that rolled around. I don't know, make the drop ride drop on a big log. I don't know, something like that would be pretty fun, I think. Just go a little further with that. But the drop itself, it's just like any other drop ride. You've done it once, you've done it a million times, but heck, it's fun. And the only reason I'm putting it above Barnstormer, again, is purely because I find it to be more thrilling personally. Moving on to A tier. A tier and above is either super good or dang, that's almost perfect. So let's get into A with an honorable mention. A great way to kick off A tier, I think, is with Blazing Fury. Now hold on. For those of you that have been to the park, you might have just clutched your chest and thought you had a heart attack, but I'm serious. And also let me explain why it's an honorable mention. Blazing Fury is an honorable mention because right now it's under refurbishment. So I don't exactly know what they're doing to this ride. They might change it in so much of a way that I don't like it anymore. So I can't say for certainty that it's going to remain in this spot. Though in the last time I rode it, it would be here. Blazing Fury is a classic dark ride. It's pretty old. Actually, that's kind of an understatement. It's very old. The animatronics, if you can even call them that, are just mannequins on rails and poles bouncing back and forth. Not a lot of movement, very low tech. So why is it so high? Well, I'm kind of a sucker for dark rides, and this is an old one, and I can appreciate all the work that was put into it. As far as dark rides go, it accomplishes what dark rides set out to do very well. I think the sets are very detailed, maybe not exactly the most complex, but there are certainly some scenes that are super beautiful, like that waterfall. That is awesome. That's something straight out of Disney World. I really like some of the sets in here. Over the years, the ride has gotten more rickety, and they keep changing the ending for some unknown reason. But overall, I like it a lot. And it also has a little thrilling part at the end. Like I mentioned, they do kind of mess around with the ending a lot, weirdly. But they don't ever take away that drop, and I hope they don't. Because that drop is so inappropriate, because that ride is not thrilling at all. And at the end, they put you in pitch black and throw you down a hill. And I always love that, because the unsuspecting people are always really caught off guard. And that's one of the most fun parts of the ride. I think as far as dark rides go, it's not really my favorite, but it's the only one at Dollywood, and it's really cool. It's like you're riding an antique, guys. Come on, give it a little bit of credit. If you're at all interested in theme parks or just rides in general, this is one that I think is a must ride at Dollywood. Though, as of recording this video, it is under refurbishment, so I'm not really sure what they're going to do to it. Next in A tier is Thunderhead. Thunderhead is a wooden coaster. So you might immediately ask, why isn't this lower? Wooden coasters are terrible and we all hate them. I do agree with you, but Dollywood does wooden coasters really, really well, and Thunderhead is no exception. Though, as its name implies, it does rattle you a bit. It's nowhere near as bad as some of the wooden coasters I've ridden. And on top of that, some of the drops in this ride are genuinely good. It's a thrilling ride. It's not exactly the most smooth, but as far as wooden coasters go, it's pretty dang good. It's fun, it's thrilling, it's kind of lacking in the theming department, and I wish the coaster layout was a bit more interesting, but I still think it's a super good ride. It is a must ride if you visit Dollywood, hands down. Then to cap off A tier, we have the Tennessee Tornado. This might be one that some of you were expecting me to put in S, but I have a pretty good reason as to why it's here. The Tennessee Tornado is one of the fastest rides at the park. It's like something, it goes over 70 miles an hour. You go through multiple loops. This might be controversial, but I think it's the most thrilling ride at the park. There's really no other ride that gives me the adrenaline boost that Tennessee Tornado does, which I think pulls it up a lot higher than some people might put it because of the reason I'm going to say it's an A. It's just not smooth, man. This ride is extremely rough. If you don't like coasters, you are going to hate this ride, because not only is it a super crazy coaster, but it throws you around, and it throws you around hard. Maybe not as crazy as something like the Hulk and Islands of Adventure, but it's going to give you a similar beat down. It's really going to rattle your brain, but I cannot deny this ride is sick. It is really, really thrilling. It's always a low wait time because of how bad it beats your head in, so you can always hop on it and get your quick fix. It's fun. The only reason it's not an S, it's just a bit too aggressive in my opinion. It needs to be smoothed out a bit, though that is kind of part of the charm, I suppose. And that's going to round out A for us. Let's go on into S tier. These rides are just straight up amazing, and they are not just must rides for the park, but must rides for theme park heads in general. And to kick off the list, we're gonna have Big Bear Mountain. Big Bear Mountain is the newest coaster at Dollywood as of recording this video. And some people might think it should be an A. I personally originally had it in A, though for some reasons I'm gonna get into, I decided to push it up a bit and give it the S. The reason it's at the bottom of S is because I just feel like they cheaped out in terms of theming. I know I've said that like 1,000 times this video, theming, but I do think it's something Dollywood does really well, especially for its size. And Big Bear is just begging to have some sort of bear animatronic in it. Maybe not even an animatronic, just give me a stupid bear figure that roars at me when I go by it. Where's the big bear? Isn't that the whole point? I just feel like there was somewhere in the budget for there to be a big bear under that waterfall you pass by, but there's just not. I don't know. It feels like such a missed opportunity. But other than that, the ride is super fun. It is more family friendly, so it's not gonna give you the most thrilling experience. But man, it's smooth. It's just a nice, fun, fast ride. Not the most thrilling, but hey, I give it a pass because it's just a joy to ride. Only downside, really, to me, is the theming. Though, they do a good job with theming in the queue. So it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of confusing to me. Like, what happened? Where's the big bear? That's why I almost put it in A. But for all the things it does right, I'm going to give it a pass and say it is an S tier, though it is at the bottom for me. Next in S tier is one of my personal favorites and what I think is the best themed attraction at the Dollywood Resort. And that is the Mystery Mine. Dude, the Mystery Mine is awesome, and here's why. The facade of the thing is incredible. It looks something like straight out of Universal. The level of detail and quality, I love it. Once you're inside, you get in these minecart looking things. There's a song playing in the queue. The queue is all like mine themed, and you go through all these animatronics, and then on top of that, you got a really thrilling coaster to boot. One that's both inside and outside. Some people don't like it quite as much as I do because there are parts where it's a little bit rough. And I have to admit, there are parts that are a little bit rough. Some of the turns are sharp. Some of the drops are not very smooth. But what I have to say is that if you hold your head forward, I know the thing on the car says hold your head back, but kind of give yourself a little bit off the seat, just kind of pick your head up a little bit. I'm telling you, the ride is way more enjoyable. It doesn't feel nearly as rough. I know that me having to explain how to not get hurt on this thing, you might think should drop it down, but I'm just a sucker for good theming and thrill, okay? And the Mystery Mine does both amazingly. Part of me wanted to put it a little bit higher, but there are some other things in S tier that it just can't compete with. But overall, I love the Mystery Mine. It is a must hit if you're at Dollywood. And if you're a fan of themed coasters in general, it's one of the best I've ever experienced. You have to hit it. Now we're hitting the final two. Honestly, these are an S tier, but I would argue there might should be a new tier called S plus for these two. They're really in a lane of their own. They're incredible, and we all know what they are. But which one do I think personally is better? Well, let's find out really quick. For me, the second to best ride at Dollywood is the Lightning Rod. The Lightning Rod recently had to take away the launch. I understand why the launch was taken away. It was done to cut down on maintenance, and I completely understand that. The Lightning Rod went down constantly. I'm sure it was just a maintenance nightmare, and from what I understand, it was because of this launch. So taking it out is kind of a necessity. I get that. But the chain lift, it kind of kills that opening momentum to me. That's not to say the ride isn't great. It is. It's awesome. I think it's only second to Tennessee Tornado in terms of thrill, but it's really close. Like, this ride is the fastest wooden coaster in the world as of recording this, and it really shows. And even though it's wooden, there is no ricketiness to this at all. It is a very smooth experience. The airtime is crazy. The speed is awesome. Man, I just missed the launch. I know that's such a tired opinion to have, but a chain lift is great, but that ride was designed with the launch in mind, and it shows. Overall, it's still one of the best rides at the park. Still one of the best coasters I've ever ridden. But man, bring the launch back. But that is the only thing, in my opinion, holding it behind what I think is the best ride at Dollywood. And to cap off S tier and finish my list of how I would rank the rides at Dollywood is the Wild Eagle. That is my favorite ride at Dollywood, and here's why. The Wild Eagle is a hanging coaster. It's not exactly super unique in that way, but it's the best one I've ever ridden, at least so far. I've ridden stuff that's similar to it, like I've ridden the Gatekeeper at Cedar Point, and that was very similar, but what it showed me is just how good Wild Eagle's track layout actually is. It's great. That first drop is awesome. You feel like you are so high off the ground when you ride that thing. I mean, just the thrill of it is awesome. Really, the only thing I think they could do to make this better is maybe go a step further in theming the queue, but the queue is already perfectly serviceable, but the switchbacks are kind of lame. But the coaster itself, it's world class. It's one of the best I've ever ridden. If you are at Dollywood, if you like theme parks, if you like coasters, you have got to ride this ride. It is one of my absolute favorites, one of my top recommendations. I've visited several theme parks over the years, and very few have attractions that can step up to the quality of the Wild Eagle. It's incredible. You've got to ride it. And that was my list of all of the rides at Dollywood. I'm going to go ahead and pop them up here. I might have to do it on a few separate screens because of how many there are. And just kind of look over them and see, do my opinions line up with yours? Did I say anything that is just completely unhinged? I know that Blazing Fury thing is probably going to get some kickback. But just let me know in the comments. What do you think? What's your favorite ride? Is it the Lightning Rod? If so, why do you think it's better than Wild Eagle? I'd love to hear your opinions. Overall, I think Dollywood is a fantastic park. It's my most visited park by far, and I still plan on going back just about every year. I love it. It's great. And if you're there, you've got to hit those S tier rides for sure, and definitely check out some of the other ones too, especially A tier. Hopefully Blazing Fury is open. Maybe comment below what happened to it. Is it still going to be an A with my critiques and my praises? But yeah, that's the list. So let me know what you think. See ya.